Tonight, the Thanksgiving storm, travel trouble for millions, and the bitter cold right behind it. The holiday shopping squeeze, higher prices, and fewer days till Christmas, and the extraordinary acts this Thanksgiving, not just of kindness, but of joy. First tonight, heavy rain and snow for the Northeast, washing out parades, threatening travel on the roads and in the air. Now the winter weather alerts and the cold moving in just as millions head back home. And news on that shocking airport security breach.
They talked to the captain. We're just waiting for the police to come on board.
Passengers speak out about seeing that stowaway on the flight. President-elect Trump clashes with the president of Mexico after their high-stakes call and his threat to impose tariffs and close the border. President Biden is now weighing in. Also tonight, the growing list of lawmakers and officials from both parties facing hoax security threats. Russia's major new assault on Ukraine's energy system, more than 1 million people left in the freezing cold. Putin's message to the U.S. and its NATO allies, and his words of praise for Donald Trump. And with 5 fewer days between Thanksgiving and Christmas, American spending is up this year, even as many are still carrying debt from what they bought last year. And where to find those coveted Black Friday deals. Rising temperatures are leading to rising tensions in the resource-rich Arctic. Two superpowers, Russia and China, are stepping up joint military operations. Our Stephanie Ramos with U.S. Special Operations Forces on the peril and the opportunity in this new frontier. A New York couple positively identified after 44 years after their Lincoln Continental was found at the bottom of a Georgia lake. Dodger superstar Shohei Ohtani sues for ownership of a baseball card collection he says his former interpreter bought with stolen funds. And the extraordinary acts of kindness and of joy this Thanksgiving Day. Tonight's America Strong.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us on this Thanksgiving. I'm Lindsay Davis in for David. We begin tonight with a massive storm that is slamming the Northeast with heavy snow and rain, creating havoc for holiday travelers. The blinding and heavy snow making roads nearly impassable in parts of New Hampshire. Cars left stranded on the side of the road. But the heavy rain did not stop large crowds from lining the streets of New York City to take in the sights of the annual Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. And the new details coming in tonight about the stowaway who boarded a flight and managed to make it all the way from New York to Paris. ABC's Trevor Ault leads us off.
Tonight, a powerful Thanksgiving storm battering the Northeast with heavy snow and rain. Nearly 1.5 million people under lake-effect snow warnings from New York to Pennsylvania to Ohio. Drivers facing treacherous conditions in New Hampshire. Vehicles left stranded. Millions braving the soaking rain at Thanksgiving parades, including the Macy's parade in New York.
It's a little chilly, a little wet, but, you know, I think that the unexpectedness of this can kind of be a little exciting.
And the wet weather not stopping the nation's oldest Thanksgiving parade in Philadelphia. And tonight, we're learning new details about that shocking security breach at one of New York's busiest airports.
They talked to the captain. We're just waiting for the police to come on board.
A stowaway slipping past the TSA ID scan and a Delta agent at JFK sneaking onto an international flight to Paris. Rob Jackson was on that packed plane.
It's definitely concerning.
And says he heard a flight attendant say a woman had been moving between the bathrooms without ever taking a seat.
I feel like there were clearly multiple layers of security at JFK Airport that failed. I just feel like it never should have gotten to that point where an unauthorized person was able to board an international flight.
That stowaway was detained upon landing. Delta is now conducting a full investigation.
And Lindsay, the busiest travel days may still be in front of us. Tomorrow morning will likely be very congested on the roads, and at airports, Sunday could be the busiest day in TSA history. Lindsay.
A word to the wise. Trevor, thank you and happy Thanksgiving. Let's get right to ABC's meteorologist Samara Theodore. Samara, we know millions are bracing not only for heavy snow, but also the coldest air of the season.
Yes, Lindsay. In fact, the worst of the rain has left the I-95 corridor, but the winds behind it really adding to that bite in the air. We're still seeing snow fall for parts of New England, including Vermont, New Hampshire, upstate New York, and Maine. In the next 24 hours, more snow is anticipated, mainly for Lake Erie, Lake Ontario, and the cities surrounding it. In fact, we do have some warnings in place right now. We have a lake effect snow warning from Cleveland to Buffalo, winter storm warnings for parts of Michigan. And as far as totals go, Mexico, we could see anywhere from 1 to 2 feet of snow in cities like Cleveland, Erie, and Buffalo. Up towards Watertown, New York, upstate New York, they could see 3 to 4 feet of snow. And you know, we need the cold air to make the snow, and boy, is it coming into play. Now, on Friday, Black Friday, a lot of folks are going to be shopping. Places like Minneapolis, around 18 degrees. Philadelphia on Saturday, only reaching a high of 38. Lindsay?
That wintry weather is upon us, Samara. Thank you. Now to President Biden weighing in on President-elect Trump's tariff threat against Mexico and Canada and the fallout over the high-stakes call between Trump and the president of Mexico. The latest now from ABC's Jay O'Brien.
Tonight, President-elect Donald Trump and Mexico's president clashing over details of a high-stakes call related to Trump's signature campaign issue, immigration. Trump yesterday claiming that Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum agreed to, quote, stop migration through Mexico and into the United States, effectively closing our southern border. But then Sheinbaum appearing to contradict the president-elect, saying she told Trump migrant caravans are being stopped before they reach the U.S., adding, we reiterate that Mexico's position is not to close borders.
We're going to end up with the largest deportation.
The call coming after Trump pledging to follow through on a key campaign promise threatened to impose sweeping 25% across-the-board tariffs on goods from Mexico and Canada until both countries stop what Trump claims is a flow of drugs and illegal migrants.
Every damn thing that they sell into the United States is going to have like a 25% tariff until they stop drugs from coming in.
Sheinbaum threatening a trade war and tariffs on American goods in response. President Biden today saying he hopes Trump rethinks his tariff plan, calling it counterproductive.
We have an unusual situation in America. We're surrounded by the Pacific Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, and 2 allies, Mexico and Canada. And the last thing we need to do is begin to screw up those relationships.
Trump also meeting with Meta CEO and Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg, inviting the tech titan to dinner at Mar-a-Lago. Zuckerberg, who had been critical of Trump suspending his accounts on Facebook and Instagram for 2 years after the January 6th attack, now appearing to court Trump's favor before his second term. This summer, Zuckerberg personally calling Trump and praising his response to the Butler assassination attempt.
Mark Zuckerberg has been very clear about his desire to be a supporter of and a participant in this change that we're seeing all around America.
In a statement, Meta saying Zuckerberg was grateful for the invitation and that it's an important time for the future of American innovation.
Let's get right to Jay O'Brien in West Palm Beach for us tonight. Jay, we're learning more about President-elect Trump's appointees and now some Democratic lawmakers who are all being targeted by hoax, bomb threats, and swatting incidents. What can you tell us about that?
That's exactly right, Lindsay. We're learning tonight of at least 5 Democratic lawmakers of Connecticut whose homes this Thanksgiving were targeted with hoax bomb threats. No explosive devices were found, and it comes just a day after at least 7 of Donald Trump's cabinet picks, including his choice for Secretary of Defense and CIA director, had security incidents at their homes as well, ranging from pipe bomb threats to swatting. No explosive devices recovered in those incidents either. And tonight, Lindsay, the FBI, as well as state and local law enforcement, conducting several ongoing investigations. Lindsay. And we know the Trump administration has called those threats un-American. Jay, thank you. Overseas now to the Middle East and the fragile ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah. Both sides are now accusing the other of violating an agreement to end the fighting. Meanwhile, some residents of South Lebanon returned home to scenes of devastation and destruction. Now to Russia, which is unleashing a massive aerial attack against Ukraine's energy grid. That assault can be seen in videos circulating online. More than 1 million people are without power in the brutal cold there. And Vladimir Putin out with a new warning to the West and praise for President-elect Trump. Here's ABC's chief foreign correspondent Ian Pannell.
Tonight, another major Russian aerial assault seen in videos circulating online. Nearly 200 missiles and drones striking Ukraine's energy system. More than 1 million households now in the dark. Vladimir Putin stepping up his campaign to crush Ukraine's power grid, collective punishment of civilians as winter sets in. President Zelensky calling the attack vile. And the US ambassador to Ukraine writing from the embassy's bunker saying she awoke to air raid sirens on Thanksgiving morning. Putin saying the attack was a response to the use of US weapons against Russia, recently approved by President Biden. In an apparent warning to the US and NATO, Putin claiming his weapons, like this hypersonic missile, are stronger than American ones. Putin also accusing the Biden administration of escalating the war and creating difficulties for President-elect Trump, who he called a quite clever and experienced man, saying he will find a solution. But the long war taking its toll.
Hello.
I met 15-year-old Rostislav, his body scarred by shrapnel in a recent missile attack.
How would you describe what it's like living in Ukraine right now?
He's visibly shaken, but he tells me he doesn't want to leave because this is where he was born.
Lindsay, President Biden releasing a statement just now calling Russia's aerial attack horrific, saying the United States stands with Ukraine. But honestly, for many Ukrainians, the question right now is for how much longer? Lindsay?
Ian, thank you. The U.S. is also closely watching Russia's movements in the resource-rich Arctic and the Kremlin's growing cooperation with China. The melting ice and rising temperatures are leading to rising tensions. Our Stephanie Ramos travels to this new frontier where U.S. Special Operations Forces reveal the peril as well as the opportunity.
Tonight, the U.S. closely monitoring growing military cooperation between Russia and China in the resource-rich Arctic. Russian and Chinese warships stepping up operations in recent weeks. And bombers from both countries seen patrolling the skies near Alaska in July for the first time. The Arctic now a new point of tensions as the U.S., Russia, and China see new opportunities in a region where rising temperatures have caused the polar ice sheet to recede, opening up new sea lanes and shipping routes. We traveled to Alaska, where U.S. Special Operation teams are preparing for any conflict in the region.
We're about to get on this MC-130 aircraft headed to Wales, one of the most western points in Alaska. We are with a team of Green Berets as they operate in the Arctic.
We follow them to the closest point to Russia on the American mainland.
Some of the areas where our outstations are at, less than 3 miles away from Russia. So the actions that our personnel and the operations that our personnel are taking on the ground there, they are going to elicit a response in some form or fashion.
This is Polar Dagger, a mission intended to show Russia's decision makers what the U.S. military can do in the remote areas of the Arctic.
Just being in this location, rapidly deploying, rapidly force projecting, is going to cause a reaction that then we can look at for future operations.
But the goal is to keep the Arctic stable and prevent the risk of miscalculation with Russia and China as they increase their operations in the region.
Just about 30 miles out from here is Big Diomede Island. That is Russian territory. To the east of that is Little Diomede. That is U.S. territory. When the water freezes in the winter, you can literally walk to Russia, which is why this area is so critical to our national defense.
Colonel Matthew Tucker says the military's ability to operate here shouldn't be taken as a threat.
We have a series of operations that we conduct throughout the year focused on demonstrating our ability to rapidly deploy, gaining domain awareness, ensure we know and understand what our adversaries are doing in the region or our competitors are doing in the region, and then preparing our capabilities.
Lindsay, these troops are working day and night, not only to protect the nation, but also to provide critical oversight on those Russian and Chinese forces, as all three countries look to exploit the opportunities in the Arctic. Lindsay.
Certainly an uptick in activity there. Stephanie, thank you. Next tonight, tomorrow is Black Friday, one of the busiest days of the holiday shopping season, which is shorter this year. And so far, all signs are pointing to shoppers spending more money, even though many are still carrying debt from last year. More now from ABC's Melissa Adon.
Tonight, the holiday shopping season is heating up, and despite widespread economic anxiety, consumer spending is off to a strong start. Since November 1st, e-commerce data gathered by Adobe Analytics shows that online shoppers have already spent more than $77 billion. That's up more than 9% since last year, and the National Retail Federation expects record spending on gifts, food, decorations, and other seasonal items. with consumers spending about $25 per person more than last year.
The average holiday shopper is budgeting around $900.
With big discounts expected to land between Black Friday and Cyber Monday, including 24% off televisions, 23% off computers, and 30% off electronics.
How do you feel like you can save and try to stay within your budget?
I feel like definitely Black Friday and Cyber Monday are my time to shine, because that's the only way I can afford the gifts that I want to get.
Experts predicting that with 5 fewer days between Thanksgiving and Christmas this year, shoppers are more likely to get off their computers and hunt for deals in stores.
With one less week, we see a lot more store traffic because the reliability of shipping being at your doorstep.
Lindsay, recent surveys have found that many shoppers are actually still carrying over debt from last year's holiday season. So definitely makes you want to keep in mind that all of that bargain shopping, those deals, it can add up. Lindsay?
Certainly can. Good advice there, Melissa. Thank you so much. There is still much more ahead on World News Tonight this Thanksgiving. The decades-old mystery solved. What authorities found at the bottom of a lake. News about Dodgers superstar Shohei Ohtani and giving thanks to the airline captain who bought pizza for his passengers, all 155 of them. Next tonight, the mysterious disappearance of a couple from Scarsdale, New York, solved after 44 years. Charles Romer and his wife, Catherine, have been positively identified after their Lincoln Continental was found at the bottom of a lake in Brunswick, Georgia. The Romers vanished while driving back from Florida in 1980. Their family suspected foul play, but tonight it appears it may have been an accident. When we come back, Shohei Ohtani's new drama with his former interpreter and U.S. troops in Iraq and their Thanksgiving feast. A little bit of home on this holiday. To the index tonight, Dodgers superstar Shohei Ohtani is suing to get a collection of baseball cards from his former interpreter, Ippei Mizuhara. Mizuhara has already pleaded guilty to stealing $17 million from Ohtani's accounts to cover his gambling debts. Ohtani says Mizuhara also used $325,000 of those stolen funds to buy the cards, which were confiscated by police during Mizuhara's arrest. Now to the Thanksgiving Day celebrations overseas. Troops in Iraq enjoyed a Thanksgiving Day feast with all the trimmings. President Biden celebrating the holiday with his family in Nantucket, greeting first responders at a fire station and delivering them a pumpkin pie. The president says on this Thanksgiving he is grateful for his family, a peaceful transition, and the ceasefire deal between Israel and Hezbollah. Coming up, acts of kindness across the country.
ABC World News Tonight with David Muir, sponsored by Verizon.
Finally, America strong. Our thanks to the quiet heroes. Tonight on this Thanksgiving, the incredible acts of kindness across our country. From right here in New York City, the glove factory, Wing and Weft Gloves. The team hard at work sewing toiletry kits that they're donating to homeless shelters. Southwest Airlines donating the seat covers from decommissioned planes. The seamstresses turning the seats into toiletry kits.
Friends, family, even my niece and her Girl Scout troop came to work on this project. Happy Thanksgiving from Wing and Weft Gloves.
In Gloucester, Massachusetts, Gorton's Seafood since 1849. 500 workers. This year, for their 175th anniversary, they're encouraging their team and loyal customers to perform 175 acts of joy. Jody Blanche is donating food. She's worked at Gorton's for 34 years. Larry Ireland is donating too.
I was proud to be able to make a difference in my community. Happy Thanksgiving.
Susie Siegel on the impact.
From donating yellow items to local animal shelters and schools, to filling free local libraries with yellow books, to yellow-themed beach cleanups, we saw some incredible and creative ways to make a difference in our communities.
And with so many traveling this holiday season, United Airlines pilot Scott Wardle personally ordering and serving dozens of pizzas to 155 passengers on his flight. Flying from Houston to Phoenix, he had to make an emergency landing in Albuquerque for a sick passenger. The passenger, thankfully, would be okay. But the cabin crew timed out, and the passengers had to wait for new flight attendants. With the food court about to close, Captain Scott sprung into action.
If there's anything you can ever do for someone, even if it's a small gesture out of it, a lot of times that is well received. And it's sometimes the small things that make the greatest impact. Happy holidays and happy Thanksgiving.
It's the little things, and we are thankful for you. Have a good night.
Thank you for making World News Tonight with David Muir, America's most watched newscast.